Has de donar... Aquí no tinc... Sí? Thanks. Well, I was giving you the good morning. We're starting this last day of this symposium with Maurizio Ruzzene, Forms of Economic Value, Lack of Measure and Money Power, Alternative Currencies Facing Systemic Crisis. I haven't got the background of the speakers, so you please explain your own background. Thanks a lot.
It's very difficult because my English is very poor, and so I apologize for this, but I will try to do my best. I study on alternative monetary systems since a lot of years, and I'm an activist of Associazione di Crescita in Italian, it's the Growth Association. And in this presentation, it's very complicated, many slides, but I will try to do my best and we'll see what is possible to do. And anyway, you can read some, maybe you can read well or not so well. Yes. Because if my English is poor, you can have a look there. And this is a slightly modified presentation I already have in Lione. So if somebody has been there, probably listen more or less something. I changed just something, but not so much. And the problem is the lack of an adequate system for measurement of economic value, of course. And I will consider this in the last, the final slides. And before, in first part, I briefly recall the different features of value power involved in official currency. Mainly intrinsic value. We don't consider enough intrinsic value. Usually we make confusion about per se value and intrinsic value, but they are very different. And then we say how some nominative credit system, as time banking, try to go beyond this kind of problem that intrinsic value rises usually. And then I refer to an average social value of labor time. And the average social value of labor time is very important. They experiment in Ithaca hours, because otherwise, but you will see then there's such problems. And then it's very important to make a clear distinction between measurement of credit value, which is in time banking is stable, not changing, and the variation in the exchange value. And this can change. For example, in Fourier-Kipu, exchange value of labor activity change a lot, but the unit of measure is always the same. It's always that. This is very important matter. And so, first we have to consider very fast, very quickly, the feature of monetary value power. And I focus mainly in the first group and the third group. Monetary value power is considered intrinsic to a currency and valid per se. We have to note that intrinsic value or power is the same, usually is related to currency. I distinguish currency and money. Money is abstract wealth, and currency is the medium. And another very important characteristic of monetary power is impersonal and anonymous. If we look at nominative credit, they are different, very different. No impersonal anonymous value or power, no intrinsic value, not valid per se. Many currencies are not, they don't consider value, money value as valid per se, but many currencies are imbued with intrinsic value. For example, all the Mirage currency have intrinsic value. And this raises many problems, as we'll see. Intrinsic value is not necessarily material. We can have a virtual currency, but there is still intrinsic value. And the important thing that when you have intrinsic a currency imbued with intrinsic value, we have some problem usually, many problems. Undue growth of currency, loss or devaluation of its value, increase in debt. And this problem arises also for currency, which have intrinsic value. People like power, and they think that just creating currency, we have more power. And this happens also in some alternative currency. For example, in Argentina, crisis when we have a loss of value, inflation of currency. But this is very important for monetary crisis because it's inside the system, the monetary system. And then there are some problems, crisis on the environment context. And here is important also the per se value, because per se value of money leads people to consider the creation and possession of money as an end in itself. And so this leads to indifference to the environment implication and social or existential cost of the creation or accumulation of money. Many aspects and consequence of per se value and intrinsic value are similar, but the issue involved are significantly different because per se value, as I said, is on external crisis, and the intrinsic is internal, the monetary system. And we have seen before, I told before that there is undue growth of currency, loss of devaluation of its value, increase in debt. This is very important, for example, when we have to face a crisis of the euro, probably. Because if we replace the euro with another currency, we have a lot of problems. We can have a lot of problems. And the problem arises when the dimension become greater, not for small groups. Because for small group, you can manage well the relation. When the size grow up, structural effect prevail on personal intention or things like this. About the lack of measure, there are some problems because lack of measure, I told before that lack of measure is one of the main causes of environment crisis. A lack of measure is strictly linked, connected with the intrinsic value, because giving a value, and particularly an exchange value, to a means for measuring value, because a currency is also a means to measure value, and this necessarily involves subjecting into continuous variation. And continuous variation undermines the attribute of stability and regularity that should be a characteristic of a modern system of measurement. And we can go on. And just one important thing is that since currency displays an intrinsic value, can only give rise to a mere system of account of variability of exchange value. And this problem also arises for alternative currency system, as I told you. And for the alternative currency that reproduce future monetary value power, such as intrinsic value, and also the impersonal value. Also, alternative currency sometimes develop impersonal value. If you issue a currency that it has its own life, this is autonomous. And the difference we can see a difference if in time bankings where there is no autonomous values and every credit is nominative. I told you about how I consider this feature in the writing paper. The writing paper is much better, and you can much better understand what I mean. Here I can show you some aspect. And as I told you about alternative currency that have intrinsic value, also alternative currency with intrinsic value find the same problem. Falsification, for example, this is very important issue for alternative currency. Falsification or also